I became familiar with the Chevrolet Volt at a GM press event in San Francisco earlier this year. I talked to the engineers, drove it around, and came away very impressed.
On these press events, we get about a half a day's experience with the car. I wondered what it would be like to really live with the Volt. Does it get 40 miles per charge? Does it really save you much gas in the long run? Well, the folks at Chevy gave me one for a week, so I can find out.
A recap: Volt is an electric car that's supposed to travel 40 miles on a charge. After that, a gasoline-powered generator makes more power to run the electric motor. With battery and gas tank full, Volt can travel around 380 miles. Day one, I drive only 20 miles, so it's electric power every mile. Up till now, all Volt interiors I've seen have looked like this. Personally, I find the darker color scheme on my tester to be very tasteful. With no buttons, this touch panel takes time getting used to. There's no gauge cluster, 2 LCD screens can be configured to your liking. Controls are just like a standard car. There's no gas engine on startup, so there are sound effects. Day 2. Chevy says most consumers drive 40 miles or less per day. Here's my mileage 2 blocks from home.
If I were to go a couple more miles, I'd hit 40. Dinner's waiting, though.
GM says frigid Michigan winters can drop range to 25 miles. Conversely, warm summer days in southern states can boost it to 50 or 60. The connector is tough enough to be driven over. Ask me how I know. Dig the flashlight, great at night. A full charge takes 11 hours with standard 110 current, 4 hours with 220, the kind your dryer uses. Volt can be programmed to charge during off-peak rates.
Worried that pranksters will unplug your car while it's charging? Well, if the doors are locked, this is what happens. Aren't you glad you don't live near me?
By day 3, I'm finding Volt fun to drive. It has a European feel to it, much better handling dynamics than, say, Prius or Insight.
Okay, I'm about a mile away from home. It doesn't look like I'm going to make it on battery power. No, just switched over to the gas generator side. So, well, it does prove that Volt does have about a 40-mile range on the battery.
It's very hard to tell when the generator kicks in. It's seamless and often unheard. Day 4, I explore Volt a little deeper. There are 3 drive modes. Sport sharpens the throttle response. Mountain allows drivers to kick on the generator early to bank electric power for later. Coasting and braking recharges the battery. I prefer the sport setting and putting the transmission into its more aggressive regenerative mode. The added friction makes it possible to drive around without using the brakes as much. I quickly learned to budget in extra time wherever I go. Volt is an absolute rock star. People like the looks too.
Volt's Achilles heel is this space back here. Seems like there's just enough room carved out for my average-sized frame, and only seating for 2 because of the massive battery pack that runs through the middle. Seating, on the other hand, extremely comfortable.
Day 5, Volt gets pressed into serious driving.
Got a lot of errands to run today. I know that I'm going to dip into the Volt's onboard generator. I'm probably going to drive 200 miles, something that I couldn't do with the Nissan Leaf because its range is capped at 100 miles. One of my chores, the weekly TP shopping trip. I don't know if your family goes through as much of this stuff as mine. Probably not.
The hatch design is useful. The space is average-sized. Volt scores a 5 in the TP trunk test, and how weird they ran out of the store brand. So I've got to approximate with smaller brand X bundles.
This is a good test on whether or not speed affects the Volt's range. I've been traveling at 60, 65 miles an hour, and I'm just switching over to generator mode, and that's 40 miles, so apparently not. It's a pretty solid 40 miles.
And I travel 160 more miles on generator mode and burn 4.5 gallons of fuel. That's about 37 miles per gallon. When driving on the highway using the generator, it's possible to hear the gas engine when the throttle is pushed hard. The overall dynamic sounds like driving a hybrid with a very lazy CVT transmission. No sunroof is available. Chevy says it adds weight and aerodynamic drag. Speaking of aerodynamics, the flexible chin spoiler seems to always be scraping something. Day 6. Again, loads of errands. File this under operator error. For some reason, I almost always forget to close the charge port door. I drain the battery at 43 miles and hit up the generator for a dozen more. Day 7, Chevy wants their car back. I have driven a total of 497 miles.
All right, drum roll please. How much gasoline did I use in 1 week?
Not very much. Volt drinks premium fuel. A full battery charge is about $1.30 in Seattle. Total fuel bill, about $30.
Definitely wouldn't have used as much gas if I didn't drive 200 miles on Saturday, but then again, that is what the onboard generator is for.
The cost of saving money starts at 41 grand before generous tax credits. Volt will be available in all 50 states by the end of 2011. The Chevy folks say the car getting traded in the most on Volt is, you guessed it, Prius. Volt certainly feels more substantial than the Toyota. Drive the two back to back and the Chevy feels like a more expensive car. Because it is. It was great to tool around in the Volt for a week. Some folks will be perfectly fine with the 100-mile range of Nissan Leaf. You just have to know your needs. That's Driven. I'm Tom Volk.